I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today we are diving into applied energistics and completing the things needed for the All the Mods Star. Hopefully you guys are ready. So, jumping into All the Mods 9 today, we are going to be dabbling a little bit with applied energistics 2, or known as AE2. Now, it may seem a little bit strange that I said that with refined storage in the background, and that's because when we started this pack, I had to make a choice. Either applied energistics and going with really nice auto crafting and very complicated cable logistics, or going with refined storage, which has decent auto crafting and really simple item logistics. And so I chose what I thought would make the most sense for most people, and that is going with refined storage. And the fact that all of its add-ons are in here really makes refined storage a lot better than just the base mod. Now back to AE. So AE is incredibly powerful, and if you hear me refer to it as AE, that's just typically what I like to call it. It's AE2, or normally called Applied Energistics 2. Now the reason why we also need to have Applied Energistics at this point is because we are going to need singularities, and these are required for the All the Mods Star. Singularities are needed, and also the ME quantum rings. Now the funny thing is the quantum rings are used as a way to send your applied energistics system cross-dimensionally, or to send it in your main dimension and basically allow you to have wireless operation elsewhere. It is kind of a complicated multi-block to kind of set up and understand, but singularities are actually pretty simple in how you craft them, and they're actually a crafting component that you would need for the quantum ring, just to kind of explain why we're doing this. So let's talk about getting started with applied energistics in this particular pack. Now, you can go mining for Certus quartz, and I did notice that there is Certus quartz, and I think I have Certus in here. Yes, raw Certus that we got from the mining dimension, which is a part of Gregstar. Now, this seems a little bit strange, but this isn't actually how you would normally, in this version, get Certus quartz. I'm going to show you the actual way that you would normally go about getting your first bit of Certus quartz, because it's completely changed in this newer version of Minecraft. No longer are the days of you going mining for Certus. Now you have to find the Certus nodes inside of, well, the meteors that you might have stumbled upon. Now, for example, this kind of meteor. But if you're having a hard time finding meteors throughout the world, if you haven't just stumbled upon them, there is a compass that you can use to help locate them. Now, the way you go about getting that compass is by placing down a charger after crafting it. This thing is pretty cheap to make and doesn't require any starting components, and just a wooden crank from the mod as well. And this will get you started. All you have to do is place a compass in, get it charged a little bit by using some mechanical force here, and that should put a little bit of power in here, ultimately charging this compass inside. Or you can just connect this directly to your power, because it does accept FE. And there we go. So we now have the meteor compass, and when you have this in your inventory, it will locate a meteor, just like you see here, and will start to point you in the direction of one. These can also be in the ground, so keep that in mind. Now, the thing that we want is actually inside the center of this thing. So I'm going to pop down in here, and that should lead us right into this really cool, glowy looking chest. But there's actually more in here than just this chest. Now, when we break this chest, we should get all of the inscriber presses. How nice is that? But you're going to notice this is how you actually get your first bit of Certus. And we have some Certus blocks here, and we can actually turn these Certus blocks into this budding version by tossing it into some water. But we do have a flawless version of this budding, and this thing is very important, because if we were to break this, it then turns into a flawed version, and we can no longer get it back to this flawless state. This is the only flawless that you have access to. So there's a couple of ways that you can move it, and you could move it once you get later on into applied energistics. You can actually move this using this the spatial storage in order to get it to your base or get it wherever you want. But I think you can actually use the cut paste tool. Now, in this pack, you really don't need this because we do have seeds, and I'm going to be setting up the seeds, but I just want to show you that it is possible. And I think there was a little bit of testing done. And if I remember correctly, unless Dyer has patched this, you should be able to set this to the cut paste. Oh, this is actually not the cut paste. We get the cut paste tool, which is this one right here. Not the copy tool, the cut paste. And we should be able to set this to cut mode And if I was to right click and then shift right click, I can select this and then cut this out of the world. And then I can just place it anywhere in the world, just like this. And notice it is still flawless. So this is an insane way of moving this thing around. And the cool part about the flawless is it will never turn back, because every time these grow and you harvest them, this will start to decay over time. So that's something to keep in mind. And then you would have to constantly refresh. There are systems that will show you how to do this and constantly get these to regrow. But if you can move this thing, you might as well do that. So to kind of get started, at least in my case, I do want to grab 4 blocks of this Certus, including this, which we should be able to get to turn back into a regular Certus block after we've broken it enough. Now you see this has turned back, and we actually just need 4 of these, and I'm going to use this to make the seeds from Mystical Agriculture. Nice. So now we have ourselves some Certus seeds. So now that I have Certus essence starting to build up, we can actually just start to pull out Certus crystals, and this has made it very, very convenient. Now there's still one more seed that I want to make, and that's going to be the Fluix seed. So we need to take some of that charged Certus that we just got set up. And well, if we go into applied energistics, we need to grab back that charger, and we are going to make enough to be able to make this Fluix seed. So we're going to need a few Fluix crystals, which means we now need that Certus, and we are going to need a little bit of it. So let's go ahead and grab this. And that should be plenty. Now the charger here, this should be able to accept regular power off of any of our powered nodes. So if I grab a gate, we can just use a gate on this. And if I set it right here, a hopper works so nice on this now. So applied energistics has really come a long ways in its convenience factor, because setting this stuff up is so much easier than it used to be. You used to have to filter this because it would just automatically hopper it directly out, but not anymore. Now you just simply get the result as soon as it's finished charging. Now to make Fluix is still the same old-fashioned recipe where we have to toss in a redstone and quartz, and then our charged Certus quartz. And then that's going to combine all together, and boop, which is one of my favorite like crafting methods. I love the way this is crafted. And that's going to get us that Fluix crystal. So I'm going to go make some seeds from this. So now with that out of the way, we get to this pressing situation of processing our processors with refined storage nonetheless. All right, I think it's time to press on, or I should say inscribe on. So I'm going to go ahead and make 5 of these for right now. And 5 should be just a good number. And what we're going to need to kind of look at is the new interface of these. So yes, they can be placed in all kinds of different orientations, upside down, all kinds of different ways. And if we look inside of these, they have an auto export mode. They also have the automatic access mode, which is pretty cool. Now the auto export mode is just really, really nice, because you can just, with the mod itself, put a pattern provider on top of this and then just set it to auto export, and it will export from the face here. So you could essentially automate with the regular pattern providers from Applied Energistics in just 2 blocks, which is pretty darn cool. Now, refined storage is a little bit more complicated when we go to use these, because we're going to have to keep in mind that we can insert into this, but the export does have a side that we need to worry about. So I was thinking about doing it this way. How about having these upside down? So this is going to help us put just exporters on the bottom. And I think I want this to be set up, how about right here? So we're going to set these upside down, just like this. And it looks kind of weird as of right now, but this will get a little bit easier to understand when we fully start placing these in. But this is the face. So the middle slot, basically the face right here. And if we set all of these to auto export, we should be able to just put importers on the bottom side here, and then put our crafters on the top, and all of our patterns should be able to auto craft into this. Now, to some of you modded veterans out there, this may seem a little bit cursed, using refined storage to automate applied energistics. But remember how earlier I said applied energistics was, well, it had really good auto crafting, but the piping logistics was a little bit more complicated? Well, it's actually more complicated than just that, because to be able to actually auto-craft with applied energistics, we actually need 2 full multi-blocks in reality to be able to pull off some crafts. So the refined storage crafts in just a single block. with nothing more than just having a simple controller connected to it to worry about. Okay, enough of me explaining all of this. Let's see if this will actually work. Making sure all of these are set to auto export to the face. And we should be good. Now, the automation access mode, this is also important sometimes because you might want to allow automation to be in different slots. So automation can access slots from specific sides. Top and bottom slots can be extracted from. So you can have this set to all kinds of different things. I think by default, this should just work. And then we also need to worry about where our actual inscriber presses are going to go, because we need to sort of define that. For example, I usually like to have my silicon press on the far left side. And let's see if this will actually work with a silicon press. So if we go in here, and I think we might be able to just simply bypass the silicon restrictions because we already have silicon available. We can just craft it on demand, just like this with our refined storage crafting. But I want to set up a pattern that is like this. Now it's going to automatically put the inscriber press in here. You're going to want to make sure that goes away. And then I'm going to set this down to 1. So set that all the way down to 1. So 1 equals 1 printed. And let's go ahead and see if we can't put that in our crafter here and see if this will actually function. Now it doesn't have any power yet. So let's grab some gates, and I should be able to just place some gates on here. And I think inscribers work directly with regular RF power. And there we go. So these are now powered. And let's go into Applied Energistics and request our printed silicon. So I just requested 64, and we see that it's placing it in, and it is processing. And the new inscribers allow you to put more than one at a time in the press. I know, it's phenomenal that we can do this. But as you've seen, it says extract from any side, and it did. It just extracted. So that is pretty darn cool. Now we may not have needed to place them upside down, but the auto export would actually auto send it into another inventory. So that works really well with, for example, providers from Applied Energistics. If only refined storage would let you insert back into the crafters. Oh, one day. So now that we know this is working, it's time for us to, well, get the rest of them up and running. And we just need to make a pattern for all of them. Now, the final step is going to be a little bit different, and I want to make sure that this also works. That final step I was mentioning is the logic processors here. So we're going to need all of these items to make the one logic processor, and we need one for each of the 3 components. And once we have this automated, we're pretty much set in stone. This should be ready to go. So let's give it a shot. Let's go ahead and, for example, now request, let's say this. Let's request 10 logic processors. Now we should already have these, so we won't see those running, but we will see the gold go in. And then the gold gets processed, and we should see the gold now enter here, and then that completes the process. And now we have one in our storage. So there we go. We have now automated all 3 of these components, and this is pretty basic, and we'll get the job done. Now, one of the first things I typically like to make a few of to speed this process up is going to be the, let's see, these right here, the calculation processors, because those allow us to make these acceleration cards, which will make things a lot faster. So getting these acceleration cards in here are going to make a world of a difference. They're incredibly nice to be placed in here. Now, technically, if you wanted to compact all of this, there is an extended AE mod in here, which adds this extended inscriber. And the kind of way that it works is it's just like the regular inscribers. However, it's 4 inscribers in one. So you have this inscriber right here, and you can see this says inscription job 1. You can go ahead and it'll do the operation once it has some power, right? It'll craft here. But there's also another job section here you can get to by the next job, and you can put another pattern in here, and you can put a job pattern in the 3 and in the 4. So you could have all of them running and doing all 4 different operations all in one inscriber, which is kind of cool. It pretty much would make this be a 2 machine operation in reality, because then you would have this inscriber just simply making them, or maybe have another extended inscriber that can do multiple operations all at once. So this would probably be faster, or even quicker than that. You could just set up 5 of these, and then you would have the ability to have 5 of these operations running at a time. So if you would request like 64, well, now you have 4 logic presses being done every operation instead of just 1. You would need more presses for that, but actually those are pretty easy to make as well because we have the Certus essence. You know what? I'm going to set just that up actually. So I am placing in 4 different logic presses in here. This moves into the next one, which is going to be the diamond, which is engineering. And yeah, I'm just placing in 4 different presses worth. And this would be like just quadrupling our entire setup, but keeping the same form factor. So this is really, really, really nice. But let's put this to the test. Let's request 64 logic presses. And so I don't know if we can see in here, but that should have sent them in here. And let's go ahead and get the power on this. And as soon as we put power on these, we should really start to see these firing off. And are we seeing multiple jobs in every single category? It's really hard to tell, but there's 8, there's 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm wondering if this is working the way that I was thinking it would work. Okay, so with max speed upgrades, it does work. So I noticed it was putting 4 in at a time. So let me just go ahead and request 64 more, and we'll see, we should see over here that this puts in 4 at a time. Then those get processed, and then yes, I do have speed upgrades on everything now, so it is a lot faster, as you can see. So I guess at this point, now that we have that set up, I was able to now auto craft storage components, which makes this so much more smooth. And I'm going to use this in a matter condenser. This is how we're actually going to produce these singularities. And this is kind of interesting how this actually functions. So we place this down and we go ahead and start setting this up. We can change this to different modes, such as destroy items, condense into matter balls, and then condense into singularities. And we can just send it items. For example, like cobble, right? We can just send it cobble, and that's going to start going up. We need to get all the way to 256 items if we were to send it items before it crushes them. It doesn't care what the items are, so you could technically trash them. So let me show you an example of this and where this would actually be kind of nice, right? Because right now we have a trash can set up over here on our mystical agriculture farm. So a way that we could potentially set this up is we could pop back here and we could change how we have this whole thing routed. Because right now we have this going into a trash can. Well, why don't we send it in here to produce singularities? So let's go ahead and remove the trash can and we'll place this down, make sure it is set to the singularity mode, put this in, and then we're going to start seeing items just flow in over time. And I think that's a good idea. And then we want to make sure that those singularities are able to be piped out of the bottom. And so I'm going to use an importer to simply send the singularities that this produces into my refined storage system. So that's automated. Now, this is just one way of doing it because you can actually send fluids into this. While it doesn't make it clear, unless you were to read into the documentation here, it doesn't make it 100% clear just right away if you're at initial glance. But we can actually send fluid into this, but it's also kind of limited in kind of a way. Now, I do want to test a couple of different ways of doing this because there's also a way to simply pipe in tons of items into it from Applied Energistics itself, because Applied Energistics has an add-on mod in here that adds an unlimited cobble generation card. So let's also go ahead and set up the way that we can send fluid into this. So I'm going to place a sink right here. Matter condenser can go up here. We'll set this into condensed singularities, and then we can go ahead and put our storage component in. And I'm going to use what is considered one of the fastest ways to send fluids around, and you're going to see that it is also limited. So this has pretty much an unlimited transfer rate for fluids. It's kind of ridiculous. And so we are going to put a fluid interface on the bottom here from Integrated Dynamics, and then a fluid exporter in the top. And then we just need a single variable card to say, hey, go ahead and just export fluids, right? Or export fluids right here to true. And then we can go into the properties of this and we can go ahead and increase its flow rate, like fluid transfer rate. And let's set this to the insane maximum, right? So as high as this can go, and there we go. The rate is now set, and this is going up, right? It does take a whole bucket in order for this to increase. And you're seeing it go up about as fast as you can get it to go up. You can put a whole bunch of other pipes, and I had tested in other mod packs, and it does seem like you can get away with setting up a huge array to make this go even faster, but in reality, this is something that's just going to take some time. Now, I do want to test another way of doing that. But to do this, we need an applied energistic system. Now, this is probably going to be one of the most expensive cobble gens you've ever seen. But if you look at the infinity water cell, you'll also see that there is an infinity cobblestone cell that is also in the crafts. However, you will not see it in JEI for some reason. This does require a 16K. So I'm going to go ahead and get the recipe sort of set up here. And we should be able to request this. This is an infinite cobble gen, and it is going to cost those ingredients that you just seen. But this should allow me to now have an infinite access to cobblestone within a store system. So let's set up a basic storage system. All we need is an energy acceptor. We're going to need a drive, and then we're going to have ourselves a terminal, and then we use some cables. If you were using a controller, you could send power directly to your controller. No need to have an energy acceptor, but we will need it in this case. So let's go ahead and put our energy acceptor down here. And then I'm going to put my drive on top. And then on top of that, a cable. And then on the face, the screen. So this is our applied energistic system, technically, in a nutshell. I do need a gate to give it some power. And we can just simply power it from that energy acceptor that you've seen down here. So if I was smart and moved my cables around a little bit, we could actually get this connected in here and get some power running. There we go. So yes, right down here, and voila, that's all we need to have a applied energistic system. And an interesting way of thinking about this is this, by default, any network that has power, any of these basic cables are going to carry 8 channels by themselves. And this is where I said the idea behind the applied energistics can get a little complicated due to channels, which is a whole other topic in itself. And there are multiple videos that will explain all of that. Or if you're very interested in it and you want to learn more, you can set a hotkey to be able to open the guide. And notice I hover over this. It will actually explain how every single aspect of the channel systems works. And I definitely recommend reading this because it will help you get an understanding of the basis that is applied energistics. Now, for the fun part, now that we have this set up and we have that drive, technically, this is a very expensive cobble gen. We can pull cobble out of here infinitely, but we can also send cobble around, and that's what I want to try. Can I send cobble very quickly into this matter condenser? So let's see, a 64K drive. I just made another one up, and then we can go ahead and put that in here. And I want to use an exporter from, or an export bus from Applied Energistics. So I'll request one real quick, and then we're going to put this on here. Now, it's pretty slow by default, and it's going to be very slow by default. Also, I want to make sure to use my cables. This is going to be very, very slow. And if we set this to export cobble from this network, it's going to do that. And it's going to start putting it in. You can see there's 2, 3. But what I want is some acceleration cards. And then it's going to have a slow grind up in the rate of speed that it's going to start sending this cobble in. But this will be a way to technically have an infinite cobblestone gen also sending to this. Now, the max amount of speed upgrades that you can put inside of here is only going to be 4. But we're going to notice this is going to start to ramp up, and this seems relatively quick. It should continue to get faster, I think, and it may have already hit its cap. But this is just another way to let things run, and having 3 sources of singularities is only going to allow us to create these faster. Now, as far as actually getting the quantum rings automated, since we've already done everything else, it's actually pretty darn straightforward. We just need an energy cell automated. I've already got that set up to autocraft. And then it's just wanting, I think, a regular dense cell. So it says smart dense cell specifically, actually. So yes, we are going to need to set up auto crafting of the smart dense cell. And I'm just going to go in line like this. You see 4 of them make a dense cell. And then we keep going further and further until it's just a flux cable and some wool. And so flux cable and wool. And there we go. Now we have the ability to auto craft the quantum ring. And everything we need can simply be crafted like that. And so this is actually going to be used in this recipe here. So we are going to need at least 18 of them, and that should be a pretty straightforward thing to craft. Just 18, and bam, we've now requested them. Now I'll tell you what, this infinite cobble gen that you see behind me is insanely powerful. And even though it is what you see here to make it, it can be used in a ton of different ways. So do with it what you will. Oh yeah, this is definitely one of the faster ways of doing it. I even added more of them onto it, and it does seem to be accelerating it even faster. So definitely faster than this. As you can see, this has already surpassed it, and the other one has definitely been surpassed as well. And just like that, we now have our first singularity, and we're going to need at least, I believe, 18 of these because the singularities are used to make the NXIVM emitters. Yeah, we need 18 of them. Now you may be wondering, what are the actual singularities used for? Well, you would blow them up with TNT or use tiny TNT, and it would split them into two entangled singularities, meaning that those two things are technically connected to each other. And you would place one of those in a quantum ring, which we just made, and then you'd place the other one in another quantum ring somewhere else, and then those two quantum rings would allow you to connect your AE network cross-dimensionally, or just in the overworld from one location to another one. And see, doesn't it make refined storage just look really, really good because of this? This is the same thing. This is all of that, but in a single block here and a block over there, and you just put the card in and there you go. It does the same thing. Don't look at me that way. I'm not hating. I do love applied energistics, don't get me wrong. Now, something I highly recommend you actually making if you're going to use applied energistics is going to be the networking tool. This thing right here is going to be your best friend. It is very simple to make, definitely worth doing, because any sort of cable line, you can actually just right click on it and it will tell you all the information, such as how many channels you're using. So if on this particular network, we're using 5 channels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The actual terminal costs, anything that has an ME on it is going to use a channel. So it's telling us also how much power we're using and everything like that. It is fantastic, especially for these smaller little setups like this. Oh yeah, and did I mention you can also shift right click it to pull up its storage, which can hold upgrade cards. And then whenever you're inside of a machine, such as this, you have access to those things right here, and you can just drag them in, no needing to clog up your inventory. Man, if only I could cover all of my tips in just one video. Oh, that'd be nice. Oh, and if you didn't notice with this being blue that, yeah, you can actually make different colored cables, and it will affect the colors of the terminals. Something else to note is that regular Fluix cables will actually connect directly into any other colored cable. However, if you use colored cables up against another colored cable, it will not connect. Also, another useful tip. And technically, cable anchors will allow you to do the same thing. You place down a cable anchor, and this will actually keep your cables separated, just like that. Oh, and another thing that the network tool can do is also let you see through your facades when it's in your hand. You should be able to set it to be able to see transparent facades and be able to see your network by simply toggling this on and off, which is really nice, especially if your whole network is covered in facades. Oh, and another little tip is when you have facades on here, instead of breaking your entire cable, you can just simply shift right click and it just removes the facade. No need to break your entire cable line. Now, I know I didn't dive super deep into this mod and we didn't even cover auto crafting or anything like that, but we did get the fundamentals that I needed to get done, and also threw in some tips. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And well, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. And it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Otaku Smurf. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support and supporting me over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Goodness, I thank you guys so very much. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.